So, okay, so we talked about the contact information, the job objective to go at the very top of the resume, and then the key skills. Again, to reiterate, the better you understand the job for which you're applying and how your skills match the skills that the employer has, the better that you can communicate that match, that fit to the employer in your resume. And if, as you're going through that analysis, you go, oh, wow, there's some things that I'm missing, that you have to decide, evaluate, do those gaps prevent you from being able to even apply for the job? But if not, if you can still go ahead and apply, think about what you're going to do to fill in those gaps and be able to communicate that to the employer. It shows initiative, shows understanding the job requirements, and a willingness to take the steps necessary to fill in any gaps. Now, work and education history, we looked at the work history. This is about generally going back only 10 years. Again, that's a generalization. I remember that was a generalization that we used when I was at ProMatch in Sunnyvale at the Connect Center. A lot of this depends on the kind of work that you're applying for and your own particular job history. If you have work history that is more than 10 years old, that is closely related to even better, directly related to the particular job you're looking for now, you may well want to include that in here. This is a judgment call for you to discuss. If you have a career advisor you're working with, or to discuss with friends and try different approaches. Here's the thing the two things about going back greater than 10 years. I mean, one is that you can encounter age discrimination, and age discrimination is a reality. And so sometimes people limit what they do in what they document in the resume in order to prevent them from just being automatically disqualified. And that's a real consideration. Also, in some areas, just skills get really outmoded. And if you had training in a particular technical area that's 10 years old, the chances are that training is way outmoded by now. And so you don't necessarily emphasize technical skills that you had that you gained many years ago that aren't related to the current job environment. So that's something for you to consider, and in other videos we'll talk more about that question. Now, when you do your education history, first of all, mention the certificates and school diplomas that you have. Usually you just mention the highest level of school diploma that you have. For many of the entry-level positions here in the Valley, a high school diploma or a GED is a requirement. And if you don't have a high school diploma, if you don't have a GED, go to adult education, take some other mechanism to get your high school diploma or to get a GED. If you have certificates that are related to the job objective, include those in here. If you're applying as an office assistant and you have certificates in word processing or using spreadsheets or in Microsoft Office, include those certificates in your education history. And so that and focus on those things that are most closely related to the job for which you're applying. The linkage in with success stories, where you talk about problems and solutions, problems that the business had, solutions that you developed, benefits that your solutions gave customers or gave the business. keep those success stories in mind when you're putting together a resume. You may be able to use some of the wording from the success stories in the resume, and very definitely you want to have success stories or examples to back up what you put, say, in the resume. References. Okay. Generally speaking, not necessary to put references available upon request. If it's important, well, okay, first, employers will assume that you have references. So put together your list of references really early in your job search process. Update that throughout your career, throughout as you evolve as a professional and as a person. Make that list of your references. Make sure that wherever possible you can include people with whom you work. Talk with the people in advance and make sure that they're willing to be a reference for you. And give them some indication of the kind of reference, the kind of reference that you're looking for. So when I was applying to teach up at Kenyatta College, and I had to give lists of references, I looked at some of the individuals who had known me when I was working in East Palo Alto, including one of the women who was on the original hiring team for me in East Palo Alto, an African-American woman, to help demonstrate my sensitivity to diversity and my experience in working with individuals from many different cultural, ethnic, and racial backgrounds. So I wanted her to talk about that. Whereas when I contacted one of the former managers from HP, I wanted her to talk more about my work as a project manager, my business experience, my organizational experience. So I tailored the references to the kinds of skills that and qualities that I knew that the school was looking for, and I talked with those people in advance. I lined them up. Well, actually, I wound up lining them up very quickly after I applied. And then I went on and lined up more people for other applications that I have. Do it early in the process, so as soon as they ask you for your references, you can say, yes, I've got them. And if you don't, you can get them and get back in touch with them very quickly. Employers expect you to have references. If you have letters of recommendation, include them in like the packet you bring when you go in to talk with an employer or when you go in for an interview. Letters of recommendation can be really useful. But many employers also like to just sit down and talk with people. Do's and don'ts about the resume: create your resume with a word processor. So about everybody does that today. If for whatever reason are not computer literate, build that skill. It's fundamental. Spell check, use a grammar check. Have somebody else read the resume. Have a friend read the resume. Make sure that your resume is accurate and truthful. Don't lie. It's not worth it. Not worth it. Not worth it. And make sure that you can document in some way what you've put down in the resume. That they can contact an employer, that you have some way of verifying the information the employers who are considering you for a job have some way to verify the information in your resume. And make sure, so this is, be ready to back up your resume with information, with contacts. Just be ready for that, because anything that you have on your resume, the employer could question you about, can ask you to verify. Okay, so these are just some of the basic do's and don'ts. Remember, when you give your resume to somebody, you're going to get their opinion, their thoughts based on their experience. Okay? If you give your resume to 5 different people, outside of some real basic things like spelling errors or bad, gross grammatical errors, you will very likely receive 5 different, maybe substantially different feedback, sets of comments from those 5 different people. There's no magic answer about resumes, and in the end, I think the most important thing in the resume is that you own that you are the one responsible for that. You are the one who ultimately makes that decision about what you're going to put in your resume, what you're going to say, and how you're going to back it up. And what, in the end, for you, communicates your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities to an employer. And that you have to be the ultimate judge there about what you include and what you do. Okay, this again be working on it. This is a classroom activity that I use, but if you need to write your resume, write a draft of it, show it to somebody, rewrite it, change it, modify it. You're going to modify it over the length of your career. Now, posting and distributing your resume. I'm going to stop right here, and we're going to check the timing, and then we'll come back to this.